Hey guys, you may have noticed my crappy green screen setup is no longer here, and there's a reason for that. It's that we got an upgrade. Just, just look. Just look at this bad boy. So much easier to set up. No longer do I have to fumble around with clamps and a folding green screen that is a pain in the ass to put up. I have this now. Yay! Hey, so just a quick little preface here. We are talking about Yakuza Like a Dragon today, but I wanted to make sure that everyone knows to avoid spoilers, I'm only showing footage from the first half of the game. After that, a lot of the story elements become very entwined, so I wanted to kind of avoid spoiling anything major, so I'm only using footage from the first half of the game. So don't worry about any major spoilers or anything like that. Yakuza Like a Dragon. This game's good. Okay. So, this game was made by Sega, and it's the 8th main game in the series. That's not counting any spin-offs. There's a lot of those, and most of those we didn't even get in America, so I don't even look at those anyway. This game first came out in Japan back in January on the PS4, and there was a worldwide release on November 10th. There is currently a PS5 version scheduled to come out in March, but all the gameplay that you're seeing in this video is from the Steam version, which is what I played. Now, most games in the Yakuza series focus on a character named Kiryu, but this one steps away from that and has a new protagonist whose name is Ichiban Kasuga. The story is that Ichiban willingly goes to prison for 18 years to help save his Yakuza clan, but when he gets out, he's betrayed by his former boss and then sets out to uncover the truth behind this betrayal. It's actually pretty neat. As far as I can tell, Kiryu's story from the previous games actually takes place during the time that Kasuga is in jail. So that entire 18 years that Kasuga's just stuck in jail, Kiryu's out doing his thing, which is a nice little nod to all the other games in the series. And it actually mentions this a few times throughout the story. This is also the first main Yakuza game to get an English dub since the original Yakuza game in 2005. And man, they killed it. It's really, really good. They brought on an all-star cast including names like Matt Mercer, David Hayter, and even George Takei, who voices the Yakuza boss that I mentioned earlier. And it's pretty good. It's really surprisingly intimidating how well he does it. They also brought on most of the Persona 5 voice cast, with Kasuga being voiced by Keiji Tong. I hope I'm not butchering your name, Keiji. Who is famous for doing EY in Persona 5. And from what I can tell, this is a pretty significant step up for Keiji. I mean, based on his previous works, he's mostly done side characters in video games and anime and stuff like that. But this is significantly bigger. He's doing a main character, and man, Keiji, I gotta hand it to you. You really killed it with this role. Congratulations, my man. Now, on the outside, this game looks like just your typical Yakuza game. You go around town, beating up bad guys, doing weird side missions. Same old, same old. But there's one key difference between this game and all the others in the series, and that's turn-based combat. And I want to take some time to talk about this change so that people aren't totally thrown off by this. Turn-based combat tends to be a very polarizing mechanic. A lot of gamers view it as a relic of days gone by. And that is shown a lot in the comments I've seen online about this game leading up to its release. Most people either love it or hate it. There's not a whole lot of in between on this. It also doesn't help that fans of this series are used to the real-time beat-em-up combat of the previous game starring Kiryu. Fortunately, at least in my opinion, this team did a really good job with making this new battle style fit into this world. The combat has action commands, similar to games like Paper Mario, where you have to press buttons at the right time to either do more damage or take less. Now I'm going to try to explain this the best I can, so bear with me. It's a little confusing, but you'll understand if once you start playing it. There are 3 different commands. There's 2 for attacking and there's 1 for guarding. When you're attacking, you'll have 1 button prompt for button mashing, which in my case was X because I was using an Xbox controller, and another button prompt for pressing at the right time during your attack. In my case, that was Y. And when you're attacked, you'll be able to press the guard button right as you get hit to reduce damage. In my case, this was B. So you've got these 3 buttons that all do these different things to either increase your damage or reduce what you take. There are also a multitude of classes to choose from, with each class changing your abilities and stats in combat. Each character that you get also has their own unique class, with Kasuga actually having 2 unique classes. The combat abilities in this game, basically your powers and whatnot, are unique to other games with this kind of style, in that they are based off of what a normal person would be able to do with what they have on them. Such as spitting fire by using alcohol. Stuff like that. You have to remember that these people aren't superheroes. They're just normal, average people. They don't have any magical abilities. They're just doing the best that they can with what's around them and what they have on them. Now, typical of an RPG, the usual status effects are also included, but they did include some unique ones like Drunk and Fear. The combat in this game also makes nods to the combat of the previous games, with Kasuga having the ability to randomly pick up items around him when he's fighting to hit enemies with, similar to how Kiryu would fight in the previous games. The whole reason that I say and talk about all of this is I don't want anyone to count this game out simply because they added turn-based combat to it. The team did a really good job trying to fit this change into the series without breaking the formula of the Yakuza series, and I think it works really, really well. So other than the combat, how is the game? Pretty dang fun. I don't know if you couldn't tell from earlier, but I really like this game. In this game, you mostly wander around an area called Ichinjo, which is significantly bigger than the Kamurocho of the previous games. I actually think that Kamurocho is kind of cramped and a little claustrophobic for a hub world, but they improve upon this with this one. One of the main themes of the game is Kasuga's love for Dragon Quest and how he feels like a hero in a video game. And because of this, a lot of the side quests and mechanics reference video games or try to recreate that old school RPG feel. For example, there's an entire side quest that involves finding rare enemies called Sujimon and beating them to log them in your Suji Dex. Obviously, this is a reference to Pokemon. Pretty sure you saw that coming, but it is hilarious how they do this. There are also optional dungeons added with the intention of using them to find unique treasure and grind levels if you need to get stronger. Now, a side note for these dungeons, I should warn you in advance, you will come across these weird iron barriers in the underground dungeons. At first, it seems like they are left there intentionally to block you and try to make you go another way. But it turns out, and as far as I can tell, the game never really explains this, you can break these. And the way to break these is you have to switch Kasuga to the Foreman class. I didn't figure this out until the end of the game when I found a dungeon that you literally could not explore unless you broke these barriers. I'm not a fan of this, but I figured I should warn you in case you come across these and you also get stuck. Just like other Yakuza games, there are a ton of weird and fun mini games that are scattered around the city. For example, I'll just start listing some off. Can collecting, climbing the stock market, trying not to fall asleep during a movie, shareholder meetings, kart racing, which is my personal favorite, and many more. Seriously, there's a ton that even I didn't get around to doing. One of the most interesting mechanics in this game is Kasuga's imagination. Basically, because Kasuga sees himself as this great hero, he sees enemies as these crazy villains. In combat, this causes regular bad guys to transform into these crazy-looking enemies, some appearing more menacing, while others are just weird and goofy. This makes you want to keep finding more enemies to fight just to see what they'll look like and what weird moves they'll have. Now, are there any issues with this game? Yes. Yeah, there's some issues. Due to how turn-based combat works, combat in general is just slower. This will make the game feel longer than most Yakuza games. Now, personally, I don't have a problem with this, but others might, so, just a little warning there. The combat will also start to feel pretty repetitive towards the end of the game. But thankfully, that's around the time the story starts getting really, really, really good. So it's going to be hard to put the game down around that time anyway. Getting a weird glare on my green screen, so I just closed my blinds. Sorry about that. Now, this is a story-based game, and unfortunately, the game has a very, very long intro before it really opens up. The first chapter is all backstory, and it all takes place before Kasuga goes to jail. The city of Ijincho doesn't even really open up for exploration until about chapter 3, and you don't unlock the ability to change classes until much later in the game. The action commands in combat can be pretty difficult to get the hang of at first, especially with guarding to take less damage, as every enemy has their own unique timing, so it's really hard to memorize all of those and be able to block everything. Now, I mentioned earlier that every character has their own unique class, and in this game, each character starts out as their own unique class. Unfortunately, most characters' unique class seems to be their best class overall, especially towards the end game. Now, the way that you unlock classes is once you have the ability to change classes for a character, each character can choose between 2 or 3 classes to start with. But the way that you unlock more classes for each character is by leveling up your friendship level with them. I kind of wish that they had put these unique classes as the final class that you could unlock when you get your friendship level the highest that it can be with a character, because they really feel like they should be the last thing. Now, my only real gripe about the combat is that even though it's turn-based, people still move around while waiting for your inputs. That includes both the enemies and your characters. They'll just walk around, move it around the battlefield, as you see here. Now, this doesn't seem like a big deal at first, but it can sometimes cause you to sit there waiting for enemies to line up before you attack. Now, the reason for this is some attacks will hit enemies in an area, and others can attack in a line. Most of the time, your attacks are, just one person. But there are these AoE attacks. Because of how everyone is constantly shifting around the battlefield, this can cause you to wait until the enemies gather together how you want them to, so you can deal the most damage at once. That's not the only thing either. You also have to be careful about who you choose to attack during your turn. If you choose to attack an enemy that's in the back, and you have to run past another enemy on the way there to get to that enemy that's in the way could interrupt your attack and make you lose your turn. And to make matters worse, your team doesn't have that ability. Only the enemies do. It's kind of a cheap ability. I'm not a big fan of it. It really pushes you to only attack the enemies in the front, even if the enemies in the back are just a sliver away from being knocked out. Now, despite all of that, is this game worth it? Absolutely. The main reason I wanted to talk about this game was not only because of how much I enjoyed it, but because I'm worried a lot of longtime fans of the series will miss out on an amazing experience simply because the battle system has changed. If you're worried that this change will ruin what makes the Yakuza series so unique, don't be. This game proves that the Yakuza games don't have to all be beat 'em ups. Now, don't get me wrong, I love playing as Kiryu and walking around town hitting guys over the heads with bikes and trash cans, but that doesn't have to define the series. Even if you've never played a Yakuza game before, I strongly suggest you give this one a try. The creators of this series put a lot of love into this game, and it really shows, and the game is definitely worth your time. Thank you for watching my video. If you have any suggestions about what games I should do next, please let me know. Currently, as of right now, as I'm editing this, Cyberpunk is out, and a lot of my time is going to be spent playing Cyberpunk, which I will probably do a video on. But if you have any suggestions for anything else, or even some comparison videos I should do in the future, please let me know. Any feedback is greatly appreciated. Thank you.